I always talk about the dark proofs. If you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in miracles, the incorrupt saints, the things that Christians say are part of the proofs of God's existence, then believe in the darkness. As one exorcist said to me, he said, I wish that every person could come with me at least once on an exorcism. He said they would believe that there's a God because they would see his enemy, the devil. You know, the devil is swinging his tail throughout the world because we're letting him. You know, and it's kind of like the prodigal son, the story of the prodigal son. And you know, there's a really good ending to this, so I hope you stick with me. Because the story, the parable Jesus taught of the prodigal son, he basically said, I mean, this is astonishing. He says, I don't want to live in your house anymore, to his father. And he said, I'm going to take half of the inheritance. Now, I can't imagine saying that to my own dad. Dad, I want half of your inheritance now while you're alive. But this is kind of what we're doing, isn't it? God exists. There's proof of him everywhere, and we're saying, God, we want nothing to do with you. We want to take our inheritance, that is our free will, and do as we please. And so this is what we've done. Now, the story of the prodigal son is he goes out and takes his inheritance, and he blows them on fast women and fast camels. You know, he blows it all, and he's broke. He goes broke. Did you know our world is on the verge of an economic collapse? Perhaps as you're watching this now, we're already in it. And then there was a famine in the land. And even then, the boy didn't want to return home. It wasn't until in this story, this Jewish boy, because Jesus is talking to the Jews, goes to feed pigs, that finally he has this illumination of his conscience. He wakes up and realizes, what am I doing? What have I done? You know, I think Jesus told that story as a parable that would be understood in these times, that we would understand that we are the prodigal son. This generation is the prodigal son. We've abandoned God. But you know, the beautiful thing about that story is it says the son rather left the father. It wasn't the other way around. And we don't read that the father locked the door and said to his son, well, then don't ever come back. It's not what we read. In fact, it says that when the boy finally gets up out of that pig slop, he starts his way home. It says the father saw him coming from a long way off, and he ran to him, he embraced him, and he kissed him. Now, this would have astonished the Jews because this kid would have stunk like pigs. Right now, we stink like pigs as a society. I mean, we all do. We're all covered in the pig slop of our sin. We've rejected God. We've turned away from him. And now, collectively, as a society, we are reaping what we have sown. God is waiting for us with open arms, waiting to run to this generation and embrace it. The only question is, when are we going to come home? What's it going to take? Economic collapse, famine, or maybe what Jesus said in Matthew 24, nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, which really means ethnic group against ethnic group. There will be earthquakes, famines, and plagues from place to place, Jesus said. We're experiencing it right now. Sure, every generation has, but what is going on in the world today is extraordinary. Because when I'm talking about shelves being emptied out and churches closed, I'm talking about what's happening in the entire world right now. Day by day, hour by hour. What's it going to take for us to come back to God? Some of you might be afraid right now who are watching, afraid of what's going on. You know, we're kind of like the apostles in the boat, and Jesus told it was a real story where the waves started coming over the boat, about to sink it, and they were terrified, the apostles. And Jesus was sleeping in the boat with one eye open, as my friend Noah says. And he woke up and he said, you have little faith. I don't know, maybe you're watching this, you have no faith because you don't believe in God. You've never been told about God. All you know about the Catholic Church is what you hear in the news, and believe me, there's enough scandal in the news to scandalize even me about my church, the Catholic Church. But nonetheless, God is waiting with open arms because God is love. You know, it's true. God is waiting with open arms for Hindus, Muslims, Christians, non-Christians, everyone to return to him because we're all his children, because he created us all. And he wants all of us to enter into his family, which, yes, is the Catholic Church. He's waiting. And the question is, how much shaking? How much shaking is it going to take for us to finally fall into our knees, into the pig slop of our sin? And I don't have the answer for that, but I want to say to the Christians watching this, it's time to get on your knees and pray. It's time to pray that the shaking isn't as hard as it needs to be, to pray your rosaries, to fast, we can do something right now. We can do something about it. And it's time for us to turn off the TV, to get rid of our comforts, to put them aside and realize it's serious what's going on right now. This is not a test. We are living in times right now that demand that we as Christians take our part in our role in salvation history to help bring lost souls to Jesus. The prodigal sons and daughters are out there. They're our own kids in many cases, our own grandchildren, our friends, our neighbors. What are you waiting for? You have a part to play in bringing them home. Because I tell you, the great shaking is coming. The illumination of conscience, when the entire world will see their souls, just the way St. Paul did when he fell off his high horse, or the prodigal son did when he was up to his knees in his sin. And we need to pray when then that moment comes, and it might come sooner than later, that those who are shaken will get up and say, I need to return to my Father's house. So no matter who you are, when you come home, you need to know that the Heavenly Father will be waiting for you with open arms.